Hello. My name is Camden Hovell. I am a junior here at Ball State. My major is, of course, computer science with concentration in game design and development. And as Dr. G said, I am working on a one-semester project here with Rusty as my client for transforming his board game that he's been working on his own into a digital version that anyone could play anywhere for free online. And that is where Board Game Arena comes in, because this is the easiest way for just anybody to log in and play a board game for free. So if you have taken or if you are currently in CS215, then I'm sure you're very familiar with Board Game Arena. So this is what the front page just looks like. You can see all of these like very professionally polished real board games that people have made. And our little board game that we're working on together is going to be up right there next to all of these. So Board Game Arena, like Dr. G said, lets people play board games online with their friends for free before most likely buying it, the physical copies, so that they can play it in person as well. This way. So yeah, it's the largest board game table in the world. No cost, no anything necessarily attached to it. So it is very easy for anyone to just jump on and say, I want to play a board game with either random match-made online people or people that you actually want to play with together. So our game that we're working on is titled Natural Chaos. It is a two-player abstract board game similar to chess, but instead of there being only one board, there's now 4 boards. And instead of only being 2 colors, now there's 4 colors. So it is still black versus white, but you see black player controls fire and stone, and white player would control the water and the plant. And in the middle of the board there, you see the kind of rock, paper, scissors format where fire beats plant, plant beats stone, stone beats water, and water beats fire. I want to mention this now while I have the board right in front of you, is the win condition is you're trying to get 4 in a row on any one of these squares, so up, down, left, right, or diagonal. The separate squares do not connect each other in terms of the win condition like that. And also, in terms of my own personal programming, I had to make names for all of these things, because there's one board, but then there's 4 boards, and then there's little squares on every board. So these are all very different things that are all squares. So for future reference, the names that I just made up for these things are, the whole thing is the board, this is a square, and this is a tile, and those are tokens. So you know my terminology that I made up. Yes, this is a one-semester project that I'm working on, so we're currently on week 8, so just about halfway through the semester. And I'm very confident, that this will be complete before the end of the semester. Now I would like to show you what it actually looks like right now. So if I play the game, anyone can make a developer account on Board Game Arena, and then you just get a whole bunch more access to like more fancy buttons, like being able to start a game with bots that are me. So here's what the game looks like. The actual game, you would not start with pieces on the board, but just for testing purposes, it's easier to have pieces start on the board. So each player can decide which action they want to take. You can place a token, move a token, or switch 2 tokens on the board. Currently, only placing token is completely finished. Moving token is almost finished, and I have not started on switching 2 tokens. So if this player over here wants to place their token, you see that this player is the black player, so they can either place the fire or the stone. And they can only place this on boards that have the least amount of their tokens on it. So you see these 2 boards have 1 of each. These 2 boards have 0 of their tokens, so I could put their token here. And then you see both players saw that happen. And you also saw that this player did not see all of the possible places that this person was going to place it at. Now, this person over here, they could also place one of their water or their plant tokens. So this person's going to place a plant token down here because, again, their pieces are up here. And now moving, as far as I've gotten, is you can select the move action, and then you can pick the piece that you want to move, and then that will show you all of the locations that that piece can move to, which you do click, and then it does a console.log that says that that was clicked, and that's as far as I've gotten right now. So that is what the game looks like side by side And you can also see the total pieces remaining because each player only has 8 of each of their types of pieces. So now I want to walk you through what it would actually look like on the back-end programming. So this is going to get a little technical. So Board Game Arena uses 4 different languages on the back end. For the server side, it is PHP and SQL. And then the front end for the client is HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So I'm going to be showing a little bit of all of those languages. So I took screenshots of my code from VS Code, so please ignore any formatting things or general. PHP specifically does not have the import capability of importing the BGA-specific functions, so you will see red underlines under all of those. I promise that they are not wrong. So first up, you have to start with defining all of the states. So each selection state that you saw, whenever the action bar at the top changed, that was a new state. So the first state is you're picking the token. You'll notice the most important things here are the arguments. So the arguments are what is given to the JavaScript function for what is actually being called every single time that this state is ran, and then the possible actions as well that you can take for that state. So you can either choose your token or you can go back. Those are the only actions that you can take here. Oh, I also have the language that is shown on the screen for every slide as well. So for the argument, the only argument for the choose your token type is getting the token count on the board. So that's how the game knows which boards actually have the least amount of tokens, because that is how the game determines where you can place tokens based on the game rules. So the get tokens on board count is a little bit of a bigger function. That's going through the whole board and counting where all of the tokens are. And if that token already exists, then it just adds 1 to that token type. And then we take that argument and then we put it into JavaScript. And in that JavaScript, we're determining if either of these if they have less than 8 of those tokens on the board, aka they have available tokens to still place, then we give them the option to choose that token to place. And if they don't have, or if they have 8 of that token on the board, it is not available to place because they have run out, so it's just an error. And it turns the button red. So then we're assuming that they have chosen one of their tokens. So this goes back to PHP where it tells PHP what token we placed, and then the PHP goes back into JavaScript and tells JavaScript with my global variable that I will eventually refactor, hopefully, it tells the JavaScript with the global variable what token was actually chosen. And then we would move into the next state, which is actually where the player is selecting which tile they want to place that token on. That state has the only argument of getting all of the possible places that any of the tokens can possibly be placed on, which looks a little bit like that. It loops through the whole board. It checks which tokens are currently placed, and it adds that up into the array, the tokens count array. And then the array, each square that has the least amount of tokens, it then goes through all of those, and then it says this is a possible board that you can put the token on. And it adds every tile from that board without any tiles currently on it to the possible places that you can put a token on. Now we're changing states, and this state actually does have a non-entering state, and that is updating all possible places in the JavaScript side. So that is how you saw all of the yellow squares on the when I selected I want to put a fire token down, then you saw all the yellow squares on the board come up of where you can actually put that token down. That is the JavaScript doing that. On the client, which does look like this, just a very simple loop. We're going to put some CSS over the board with that one, with the possible place class, and then that class, this took me a while to figure out, this.add tooltip to class. You would think that that function is adding a string to the class. No, it is adding a string to the object that has that class. So instead of deleting it class by class, when you want to remove the tooltip later, you have to go object by object. So that was a very confusing thing. And you also see underscores before strings. That is the BGA way of saying translate this string on the front end if people are playing in not English. And then we have, at that point, the player sees all of the yellow squares on their board. Now we're waiting for them to pick a square. So to tile. Once they click the tile, then we run onClick tile. This checks, is the player the current player? Did they pick an actual tile? Which tile did they click? And then we're going to tell BJ, we're going to tell the PHP which function to run with the exact coordinates and the token type that we are currently placing. Then we go back into PHP, and this is where the SQL comes in, and that is where we're updating the actual SQL board on the server side, so that way we know the player clicked the board. Now we have to tell the server, where did the player click? The server updates itself there, and then the server will update all of the clients with the actual fun little animation of the token going to the correct tile. And that is on the JavaScript side, of course. So this loops through all of the possible places, again, removing that based off of the object and not the class. And this is where we get into a little bit of HTML, where we're adding a div with the actual image inside of it with the token, which is on here on token add token on tile. That's what it's called. And that is where that happens. BJ has some built-in kind of animations, the slide, the move, just very fade, like very basic animations. So that's what I've stuck with for now. I will make them prettier in the future, but for right now, for the first 8 weeks, it's just getting things to work, and then in the last few weeks, it'll be making stuff prettier. And then finally, on leaving state, we have to reset that global variable back to null, so that way there's important note here on leaving state as well. This could be leaving state going to the next player, or leaving state going back to choosing their token type. So the leaving state has to be a little bit more vague, and this is also where we are removing the tooltip based on every object that has that tooltip, because otherwise you would just see every tooltip stacked on every object it's ever been on. That was a problem. And that is all I have. Here is my itch page as well if you would like to see other games that I've made. I've made quite a few, and my email.